All right, welcome back to the Lost Previews, where we talk about the preview chapters of The Lost Metal, Book 4 of Mistborn Era 2. My name is Danielle, also known as Fel Candy, and with me we have Marvin.
Hi, I'm Paleo.
This week we're going to be going over chapters 14 and 15 of The Lost Metal, and as we've stated before, there will be some greater Cosmere spoilers. So if you don't want to risk it, that is your cue.
Yep, definitely.
So, Marvin, if you would like, we could have our summary for chapter 14.
Yeah, sure. So, chapter 14 is another Wayne chapter. And so, Wayne is out on the streets in the financial district of Ellendale, and he says he's attending a funeral. And he arrives at the Drunken Spur, which is a sort of upscale cafe that imitates the sort of rough style. So, all the waiters are dressed in a rough style, or what they think is a rough style. And he's there to meet Renette and Chexi, who is Renette's girlfriend, by the looks of it. And they talk a little first about the breakup of Milan and Wayne, but then the topic moves on to Wayne's visits to Alriandra, this girl he always goes to visit and drops the money off, like his trials is what he calls them. And Chexi talks about how he should think about what Alriandra might be thinking, or if she even wants it. And then eventually he leaves the restaurant again, he doesn't really want to confront this so much. And he runs into two men in bowler hats, and he saw them beforehand, and apparently there's accountants or something like that, so they take him because they must talk about his finances with him. And that's where the chapter ends.
Yeah, so a continuation from the breakup scene between Wayne and Milan, and in typical Wayne fashion, he seems to be doing a bit of escapism, pretending, making this funeral for his relationship.
Yeah. Although I at first thought he was referring to the relationship there with the funeral, but at the end he talks about how the Wayne everybody knew was dead. So I wonder whether that is what this funeral is about. I mean, it's also for the relationship, but also sort of this Wayne who previously was in this relationship is dead to him now, and so he's a new person, I guess. This is what he's referring to there. But yeah, I agree that this escapism is a really good term for it, because we always had this sort of with the first chapter we had for Wayne when he visited the girl. It was his trial, and also when he was at this one bar, it was the Temple of the Common Man and things like that. So I feel like this is in the same sort of vein as these other ones, but this one is a lot more toned down, and as Renette and Chexi say themselves, he's maturing a little bit at least, so that is something good to see. So it's not over the top like the last ones, or last chapters we had from him were. Yeah.
I agree, and Wayne maturing is in his opinion, him dying. But I really like how Jax, who is a character we must talk about.
Yeah.
Jax mentions to him, how do you think she feels? You can put yourself into the minds of so many people. Why aren't you doing that for Alriandra? And she mentions that it seems to be more like a penance for himself, and it has nothing to do with her. It's really all about him, and he's kind of making it a selfish thing.
Yeah. And I mean, we saw this in the one chapter where we had him go there. The girl doesn't want to see him really, and it's all about him, as he says to himself, his trial to go there and make up for what he did to her father. But it's really just about him and making him feel better.
I'm surprised. Well, not surprised, I guess, but this has been going on for years and years and years, and it still happens. And I don't know how he hasn't got it through his head that this girl does not want him to keep coming by as a reminder.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's also Renette talks about, or they talk a little bit about, because of course he was into Renette for a long time and tried to woo her, and they talk about how he didn't even flirt with her or anything in some time. But in his inner monologue, or in his thoughts, he still clearly isn't fully over her. He at least there are some things where I think, okay, yeah, he still hasn't really internalized that. No, there's no chance he'll ever get with Renette because she has a girlfriend and isn't into men at all. So there is no way they could ever end up together. And like he's matured some there, but I feel like still at his core, he still doesn't want to realize it fully, unfortunately.
I was more under the impression that he has realized it because he does. I mean, he obviously is checking her out. He's attracted to her, but he's not doing it in a way of saying like, how can I get her back or anything like that. So,
True, yeah.
I mean, I think that Brandon Sanderson has heard a lot of criticism about Wayne. And so maybe this is his way of kind of reversing that a little bit, because Wayne has been quite aggressive towards her and pursuing her when she has made it abundantly clear. And in the same way, he's being very aggressive toward this Alriandra girl who has made it clear to leave her alone. And so this is kind of showing his growth, I think, and his maturing as a kind of emotionally stunted man.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring this up, actually, because I feel like Checks in this way is sort of an insert for the audience almost. So, like, because she brings up a lot of the points that people who don't like Wayne generally bring up, and like, have you thought about what Arianda thinks and things like that? So I like her a lot in general, and I do agree with you that this feels like Brandon's answer to, yeah, basically all this criticism, I guess, of Wayne. Or like, I think Brandon has always been aware of these criticisms and aware how Wayne is an odd character in that sense. And yeah, I think like at this point we must get somewhere, because we only have one book left with Wayne where he gets some sort of improvement on that front. Yeah.
One book left that we know of.
True, yeah. Maybe we've seen him somewhere else.
Speaking of Jaxie, great character. I really like her. She's so gracious. She's insightful. And she's a really good compliment to Renette, who is a lot more gruff. And I love when Wayne is describing her kind of in his narrative, how she likes sparkles and adults should be able to wear what they want. And I really like her, and I really hope that we see a little bit more from her later on.
Yeah, I hope so too, yeah. Maybe like when Wex goes over to Renette's shop to pick up some new weapon or whatever, or discuss a weapon design, I too hope we see her again. And I know it's also like that she's the one who picked this restaurant because she likes this rough style, and she's a proper Elendil girl, I feel like. While, of course, Wex, Wayne, and to some extent Renette are more like, yeah, rough around the edges, I guess is how you could say it. And it's also funny to me that they have themed restaurants at all. Like, that's such a very modern thing, I feel like, but I guess it's always been a thing in some form in our society. So yeah.
I like seeing restaurants in fantasy. I think we saw it in Warbreaker, where they had menus and people could order food. And in this one, they have a theme and waiters and like the typical, like a host and a coat check and everything. So it's just fun to see, and it fits the setting really well.
Agreed, yeah.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to say about chapter 14? I think I've pretty much hit all of my topics.
Yeah, me too. Apart from like the last sentences where like these accountants, I guess, come up, I wonder whether that's Wayne saying they're his accountants, but they're really like, I don't know, some people he owes money to, and they come to gather him up to bring them to their boss. Or did he inherit anything? Or like, is he actually wealthy because he never does anything with the money, because he just steals from people? So I don't know.
I definitely feel like they're legit investors or, money managers, because I have dealt with people like that where they're like, oh, your lack of diversification is a crime and we have to talk about your investments, and like money is everything to them. And Wayne is a very wealthy person now, apparently. So he views them as like annoyances.
So, yeah. I think in general, like, it was like a fun sort of. The chapter started with, like he said, he was running away from some people in bowler hats, and like the first association I had is that he's in trouble somehow, and then this resolution at the end, I found it quite funny. Yeah, but that's about it from me as well for this chapter.
So for chapter 15, moving along, we have a wax chapter. They are continuing with their experiment that we were very excited to see, and they're observing the reaction between the trillium and the harmonium, and the trillium spike is moving away, like being repelled by the harmonium or from the harmonium. Alik brings down some baked goods, and Marcy and Alik are flirting on screen a bit. And then a familiar person arrives, Vendel, in a different body. He arrives and hands Marcy a note that they had recovered from the set during that escapade that they were having. And then Wax is doing a demonstration of an experiment that he kind of made a little bit of breakthrough with the harmonium, where it separates not fully, but seems to be turning into its two separate components, but he's not able to fully break them. So he's setting up an experiment with the trillium spike to see if the trillium spike's reaction with it can cause them to separate. Marcy mentions that she has this note. She talks to Wax about it, and they see a symbol that looks very familiar to them in some way. And then they leave. Wax sets a timer for his experiment, and a big explosion happens. And then they go back to investigate the reaction.
Yeah, so where to even start with this one? There's so much packed in. I guess starting from the top, trillium, we saw it repelling from other metals or other spikes beforehand. And so in general, it appears to be repelled by investiture in some capacity. Like harmonium is raw investiture in some way because it's the body of a god. So it's raw investiture in the form of matter. And all the charged spikes also repel it. And when Wax is doing allomancy. So it appears to be repelled by either investiture in general or some sort of like foreign investiture, I guess you could say. If it's like not from Trell, I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a little thought that maybe Trellium, as all of the theories assume, or many of the theories assume, that Trellium is autonomy's metal. And so autonomy being kind of control over oneself and individual aspects, and it was being repelled by the fact that harmonium is a combination. But then when Wax was burning his metal, it reacted the same way, which I would assume with allomancy, it would just be preservation. So I don't know exactly what's happening, but Wax does mention that it's like a magnetism, which I have mentioned before.
Yeah.
And he says, as you're pushing them closer together, the force between them is even further or even stronger. So,
yeah, and he also theorized about like something about them being or having the same charge in some form. Like if you have, I don't know, something electrically charged and the magnet fields like, or they repel each other if they're the same charge, or of course the same poles of a magnet, of two separate magnets repel each other. But that doesn't really track to me because, like, what would be the same charge in the trillium in this case? Like, would this imply that two homologically charged spikes that have the same attribute in them would also repel? Like, I don't feel like that's a thing. So we also, I guess we have never seen other god metals interacting in this way, so maybe they all repel each other. But yeah, I feel like it's either an inherent thing of like trillium as a thing that trillium does, that it repels or is repelled by investiture, which I think Wax also thinks about, like how it's possible to detect elements with this in some capacity maybe, or if it's something more to do with the charge in it. Like, I'm not sure about what I want to think there.
Yeah, and obviously Wax doesn't know either. But
Oh yeah.
we have seen god metals or god lights or certain types of matter of shard material
Hmm.
and investiture intermingling and kind of having to be woven together in a certain pattern. So I don't know if maybe it's just a nature of Trellium itself where it reacts to other things that are just in general invested. So maybe it's just that's the charge is if it's invested or not.
Hmm.
Maybe. I was reading Bands of Morning and I was just on the chapter where Marcy discovers that the cube has a little switch in it and that grenade that they coined might have something to do with it because it kind of has a similar like mechanical reaction where you can turn it on or
Hmm.
off. And so I was thinking maybe it has something to do with that as well.
Yeah. So actually, because you brought up the different lights and things that we saw interacting, I was reminded that we have Rasium or Rasium. We saw some of it in Rhythm of War, and it seemed to be able to like conduct investiture in a way, or like have investiture flow through it, and somewhat, I think, unidirectionally as well. So this to me seems to imply that maybe it is just Trellium that is like, I don't know, maybe because it is of autonomy, it is the metal that gets repelled by other investitures or investiture in general, and like that each god metal has some sort of interaction it does with investiture. So maybe, I don't know, a hypothetical unity shard or whatever, if it existed, because that's something that people theorize, it could like attract investiture maybe like that, because that's sort of in the spirit of unity. I don't know. But I do think that would track if like each god metal had some functionality beyond, I don't know, being a god's metal, I guess. Yeah.
Well, it's magic. So it while Brandon Sanderson likes to play with the laws of physics and stuff, magic doesn't follow real physics. So he can kind of make up whatever it is. So it really is just theorizing about it until a scientist in world can
Oh yeah.
tell us what it is.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Which is why I love reading about the Waxes and the Chris's and the Navanis of the world.
Oh yeah. I just love that Vandal is showing up again, because he's the one in Bands of Morning who like explains identity and shows him these slides on the projector and everything. So he's, I feel like, very scientifically minded Kandra. And I love that we see him again. And I also love that he's the one who's apparently been assigned to Marasi's mission. So we see more of him, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I like Vendel, even though he's supposed to be this annoying character. He's a great little personality spice to sprinkle around the scene, especially when he's talking to Alik about how their masks might be a part of the skeleton and may I buy one? And Alik's like, you're weird.
Only after you die. Only after you die. Yeah, yeah. Definitely, like, I don't know, I just like him. All the Kandra are, they all have their little own personality, and I like that a lot. Yeah. So, and they're all a little quirky, because I don't know, I guess being immortal does that to you, that you sort of bring all the quirky sides of you to the front and develop them more.
I really like how Sanderson writes them as being characters rather than just a monster or a creature that shows up and drops the information and then leaves. No, they're characters, and they're interacting with everybody, and they have their own, story. So it kind of just fills it out a little better. I like that.
And I also love that they are sort of infiltrating regular society a little bit, because when Dell tells Marasi that, like, about her kerfuffle with the set and everything, and like how he just casually drops, oh yeah, we have people watching you, and like this one constable who's watching her, like, oh, I had lunch with her only last week. So yeah, of course you did. Like, I like that a lot, that they do actually do something in society, and not just like, I don't know, assassins and whatever they were in the or I guess they weren't assassins because they couldn't kill people, but like, I don't know, informants and whatever in the Final Empire times.
Yeah, we have the name of another Kandra, Limar, who is Cassilu.
Cassilo, yeah. French pronunciation probably, but
And Marcy had absolutely no idea, which means that the Kandra are doing their job as they should.
oh yeah, definitely.
And then Vendel, his descriptions are just hilarious. Like the description that he's the type of person whose entire bearing screams, "I fact check people's jokes."
Yeah.
Like just paints a picture in my mind.
Oh, definitely.
Because I know people like that. And then poor Alik hurting his feelings, saying like he offers him a biscuit, chocolate biscuit or biscuit. And he's like, "Oh, horrible." Disgusting.
Yeah. And that they only eat like or what's it? Corpses and whatever, or like rotten
carrion.
Meat. Carrion, right? Yeah. I don't know. I just love the Kandra and him in particular.
We have to talk a little bit about the note that he delivers.
Absolutely.
With a mysterious symbol.
Yeah, and it also, like the note reads, "We are watching Marasi and we are impressed." So, without touching on the symbol first, this sounds a lot like certain messages that Shallan receives from the Ghostbloods. I think, like the rhetoric, I guess, is very Ghostbloody. And yeah, a symbol of 3 interlocking diamond sort of looking things.
And basically Wax, when he thinks about what it reminds him of, it's going to be that Merwill flower that we see has been shown on the Secret History hardcover and the audiobook. Yeah,
so this Merwill flower is, so we got, as you said, we got it in Secret History on the cover of this new hardcover. And it basically, it looks exactly like the Ghostblood symbol in a way. And so, of course, we know that Kelsier is the founder, at least the leader of the Ghostbloods, and probably the founder at this point. And yeah, it is obvious that he would use Merwill flowers as his inspiration, because this is like his reminder of Mare and whatever. And so...
Not Mitsubishi.
Yeah, not Mitsubishi. Not at all. I don't know how I feel about the Ghostbloods trying to recruit Marasi, but I mean, there's only so many secret societies that Brandon can introduce, so I guess it's good that he's cutting it down a little bit of introducing new ones.
Well, we don't know what their primary goal is, but we do know that they're looking for certain individuals who fill out their ranks, fill certain things that they need. So they have Shallan from the Stormlight Archive, and they're recruiting her, and she's kind of a researcher. She's got her own skill set. Marasi is she's a very good detective. She's very analytically minded, and she has cadmium. So she has a very unique and seemingly rare ability that she's kind of become very good at using, as we've seen in the fight sequence in earlier chapters. And I don't know how she will help them, because we know that they're wanting to be able to basically transport investiture, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's one of their goals. And so how is Marasi going to kind of fit into that puzzle that we don't really know what the final picture is going to look like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess in turn, we don't really know how, like, directly Kelsier or generally this mission is sort of, or Kelsier's mission, I guess, for why he founded the Ghostbloods, I guess, was or is a primary, I don't know, sort of target for them, and how much they act independently. Like, is it, I don't know, 10 links down the chain? Is somebody trying to recruit Marasi, or is it like top down, Kelsier or whoever, other people who are in charge are going, okay, we need that person in our ranks? And yeah, it's very opaque at this point what exactly the structure of the Ghostbloods is.
The person who showed up outside of the speed bubble, we don't know exactly who it is, but it'll be interesting to see if it's going to be a brand new character, or if it's someone that we've already seen in recent books.
Yeah. Definitely excited to find out who they are, but yeah, at this point, we don't have any character that like dresses in a black or like cloth mask or whatever with a whale. So
well, yeah, That might just be because they're hiding their features, or they don't want to be recognized, or maybe they have something that's identifying about them, so they need to cover that. Or maybe it's just because masks are cool.
Maybe, yeah. It is quite interesting that Harmony apparently forbids the Conjurer from talking about the Ghostbloods, or at least like Wendell says, like he can't talk about it. And it does make me wonder, like, how pissed Sazed is at Kelsier. Like, is he does he approve of the Ghostbloods? Doesn't he? Well, how much do they know about them? Because they do know something if he can forbids them from talking about it. So
Sazed and Kelsier's dynamic is, I mean, Sazed was so loyal to Kelsier, and it's interesting because they even kind of mention that it's a bit of a secret crush. Marcy mentions that, nice to know we're working for the defense of the planet itself while God is acting like a child with a secret crush. So it's almost like he's like, playing high school politics here about Kelsier and doesn't want anybody to talk about him. Or it's interesting that it's kind of transparent to the characters that Sazed is being sketchy with the information.
Oh yeah. In general, like how Wendell talks about Harmony, he's like, oh, it's like he's very dismissive of all the theories that Wax has and the others have. So, I mean, I guess it's unprecedented for them to like have another god like coming to that territory. But yeah, it's a little odd, and I mean, I hope we find out more about their dynamic in this book, but maybe it will have to wait for, I don't know, Secret History 2 or whatever to really do a deep dive into it.
We know from the blurb that they're trying to recruit Marcy to save the planet by any means necessary, which obviously sounds very Kelsier. So
very.
I'm thinking that she's going to have to step very lightly with them because they're going to try and use her in ways that she may not agree with.
I agree with you that she should probably do that, but I'd also find it interesting, like, if she just fully buys in and is like, okay, yeah, sure, I can go along, because we sort of have this, like, mistrusting and, I don't know, playing hide and seek a little bit with Shallan before, so it would be at least different, or I guess interesting to see another dynamic between a new Ghostblood recruit and them. So I don't know. I could see it go either way, but I could also see Marcy being like, yeah, okay, sure. It sounds like an adventure, and I'll go along there. I don't know.
And where Marcy is going, we're probably going to see Wayne following as well. And Wayne seems a little more susceptible to possibly following these unorthodox methods that they might have.
Yeah.
Especially in the emotional state that he's in now. I mean, feeling like he's at his funeral and getting dumped.
I hadn't even thought about that yet, that Wayne might also be at least somehow involved there with her recruitment. Or he obviously will notice it or be involved somehow.
I mean, they weren't talking about Wayne in their letter or anything, but we've seen Marcy thinking about Wayne and thinking about how he's improved so much with his medal, and he's, kind of coming into his own as a constable, a Connor. So he's shown improvement to Marcy enough that she's, thinking about it. So maybe because she works with him, she kind of sees how much he's improved, but the Ghostbloods don't, because they're just kind of looking at her.
Yeah. Get excited to find out more and see more of the Ghostbloods.
Absolutely.
So one thing that I want to talk about with this chapter is this experiment that Rex sets up with the harmonium, where he seems to, he takes a little lump of harmonium, puts it between or into an electrical circuit, and has current path through it, is how I understand it. And what it appears to be doing is that at some point, or when he pulls it apart, at some point there seem to form two distinct halves, one of which glows, I don't know, blue, I think, or slightly blue, and the other silvery, and this, or bluish, I guess, and this seems to align with descriptions of atium and lerasium. And yeah, that's the gist of it.
I can see what he's trying to do with the
Mm-hmm.
trellium. He's trying to like do that final little push to separate the two beads.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, like, how crazy would it be if he does manage it? Like, would he burn it?
Yeah.
You know, become a missport? Like,
Who knows? Who knows? Yeah.
I would. I don't know.
I definitely would too. Like, or I guess, yeah, I split it. I don't know. Give some to Steris because sure she can be an influencer, and then take some myself. I guess, yeah. But I'm how to put this? Like, it's weird that this has any effect at all. I mean, I guess it's magic and whatever, but we never really have seen electricity interact properly with investiture. So I wonder how that works in general. Like, are there sort of investiture electrons and charges and whatever that move around if you apply normal current? And yeah, I don't know. I think usually separating charges like that doesn't work this way. Like, you'd need some sort of my physics or electricity classes are have been a long time ago. You need a capacitor, I think, for separating charges. I might be totally wrong there, but it's not as simple as like if you have a continuous circuit, you're not separating charges there. Like, you'd need some sort of separation in the first place. But maybe that pulling apart is doing that for this case. I don't know. But it's odd that you would somehow get like separate aspects of the metal, I guess, just from electricity. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know enough about electrical engineering to be able to make any comment about that. I thought that electrical currents was the only way that they could heat it up enough because they didn't, by conventional means.
Yeah.
I thought that was the only reason why they were using electricity to mold, because they were talking about molding harmonium into two beads or two spikes, or, pulling another spike out of it or something. So I thought that was basically, they found the only way that they could heat it up enough. And then I was laughing so much about when he says it's just a small little bit. How much energy could one piece of metal contain? It's like, you have no idea. And then Alec, he's like, let's just be very far away when he does this.
It's also funny that like they apparently, or the Southerners apparently have this rule not to keep too much harmonium in one place, which I found interesting, like that little comment from Alec, because I don't see a reason why that would be. Like, just storing it somewhere, I don't think it would spontaneously combust or whatever. So maybe I had a thought that it's sort of the reverse of this sort of trust situation that the Kandra had with the Lord Ruler, where they were gathering all the atium in one place. Maybe Sazed wants to avoid that and like wants to disperse ammonium as much as possible for whatever reason. I don't know if there's anything to this rule or if it's sort of a precaution from Harmony's end.
Makes me wonder if it's like, what is the reaction that they notice? Because it does say that it reacts differently, right, than small amounts. So what does it do when there's a bunch of it all together? We don't know.
Yeah, no clue whatsoever.
Find out on next episode. No. When Steris mentions that the bead, as it's separating, that it seems to want to divide because it rearranges itself to separate into basically ruin and preservation. It's making me wonder about how we know harmony and discord, and if it's arranged in a certain way, like maybe like a lattice or something. In one way, it likes to stay together, but if it rearranges into another way, maybe it's easier to come apart. It was just making me think about, because Wax is thinking about how harmonium is unstable because harmony has trouble acting because his two aspects work against each other. So I was just trying to think of how we can convert what he's saying about their aspects into like physical properties of metal. Yeah.
I could see it being like, because they note here that it's not a real alloy or a normal alloy of atium and lerasium. It's something different. And they are essentially new elements altogether, these god metals, and they are sort of investiture elements in a way. Like they're not made up of protons, neutrons, electrons, or whatever, but an investiture equivalent.
Mhm.
So I assume, or somehow maybe, what they are trying to achieve here is nuclear fission on an investiture level. Maybe, somehow. Again, it's like the closest analogy we have, I feel like. So, yeah, maybe this rearranging is also because they would form different crystal structures in the end, like different crystal lattices. And they are not fully split yet, but like the I don't know, I guess you also need intent to split them at some point, probably because it's a Cosmere. And like the identity of the metal is somehow slowly getting there, or I don't know. But
maybe that Trellium spike or the little mini piece of Trellium that they're using is that little push of intent that it needs.
Maybe.
Which I guess we'll see.
Yeah. I'd be very surprised if this already was the key and like we already have them separated at this point. But I think Wax is getting close and like is onto something there at least. But I don't know how you could in the end solve it. Like I'd never have expected this to be a thing at all where you see these separate aspects of the metal somehow manifesting. Like it's all new ground for us as well.
Well, I think I have talked about all the points that I wanted to make about chapter 15. How about you?
Yeah, same. More questions after every Wax chapter, but
honestly, cliffhanger after cliffhanger, I swear.
Yeah.
These preview chapters are killer. All right, so that has been chapter 14 and 15 of The Lost Metal. Thank you for joining us. And please, if you want to discuss anything, join us on our 17th Shard forums, our Discord channel, and remember to subscribe to our Patreon. Bye.
Bye.